Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Steven Melendez, and I'm going to be bringing you guys the latest and greatest in soccer news from around the world. Welcome back, everyone, to your favorite soccer podcast. I am back and excited to give you guys more soccer news from around the world. We have so many things to talk about. You know, we got some big teams failing this past week that I really want to get into. Of course, we still got Champions League to get into, and just some more fun top 10 stuff. So let's just get right into what we're going to be talking about in today's show. So to start off the show, I want to really get into what some of those Premier League collapses that we saw this past week. I mean, Man U, Liverpool, it was not good for those teams. So I just want to get into that and, discuss what's going to be moving forward for those teams. In the next part of the show, we're going to be talking about the Champions League group stage once again. This time, I'm going to be getting into Group C and D. Just talk about what I expect to see out of those groups. And then the third part of the show, we're going to be talking about the transfer deadline deals. It was extremely active. A lot of teams made moves, and I just want to discuss what's going on there. And then, of course, in the last part of the show, my favorite part, we're going to be talking about the top 10 center backs of all time. Of course, I wasn't there to see a lot of these guys, but man, there are some great players on this list, so you're going to want to listen to that. So let's just get right into it and talk about the Premier League giants that have collapsed this week. Now, the first team I want to get into is Manchester United, who fell 6-1 to Tottenham. Now, I know they had 10 men for most of the game because Martial got that red card and it was just absolutely terrible. But even before that, it was like in the 20-something minute, I think it was like the 24th minute that he picked up that red card, but they were already down 2-1. So regardless, it was not looking good for Manchester United in this game. I mean, they had less possession. They weren't getting as many shots. It just felt like Tottenham were finding their groove and getting literally whatever they wanted against this Manchester United team. And I mean, you got once again, Manchester United getting that penalty and Bruno Fernandes putting it home within 2 minutes of the game. So obviously to start, it looked great. And you were probably thinking, okay, here's another Manchester United masterpiece against Tottenham. I'm going to roll through, get these 3 points, and let's move on to next week. But no, that is the furthest thing from what happened in this game, because Tottenham from that point on, I mean, just 2 minutes later after that, you got a goal from Ndombele, and then 3 minutes after that, Son put a goal of his own, and he had a brace in this game, along with Harry Kane having a brace of his own after getting a penalty at the end of the game. I mean, just overall, this is just another poor performance from Manchester United, and something that is glaring. I mean, they made that transfer for Donny van de Beek, and he's been okay, but they haven't really used him all that much. They've started him in some games, brought him off the bench in others. So you're kind of wondering, like, what exactly are what's their plan here? Like why would they bring a guy in like that for like 40 million euros, just to bring him off the bench? Like, if you knew you had to make a signing, I mean, I was saying they needed like a defensive midfielder or any really midfielder. And yeah, getting Van de Beek was good, but you needed more. And on top of that, you needed more like veteran leadership, like someone that can really like galvanize this team to make them good. Because the closest thing to that is David De Gea, and he has been an absolute mess. I mean, you'll get some good games from him, but then, he'll make a lot of mistakes, at least recently. He was on a couple years ago. You were putting him in trajectory of being like in Peter Schmeichel area. Obviously, he's nowhere near that now because of how poor he's been playing over the past few years. And you just won't see the young guys looking to him as like, an outlet, someone that they can talk to, because, they're going to look at him and be like, hey, look, I'm more important to you on this team. You're going to see guys like Rashford and Greenwood. They don't have somebody that they can, really look up to. Of course, that recently changed. I'm not going to talk about that right now because we're going to talk about that later in the show. But for this game, I mean, yes, Bruno Fernandes is a great player and unlocked a lot of things for this team, but it's just not enough. It's obviously not enough. I mean, he'll get you those penalty kicks, which he's really good at, and he's good at, getting guys in the right positions with his, excellent playmaking. But you need someone to really bring this team together. Paul Pogba's another guy that, you expect way more from, and he's had some solid performances, but for what they paid for him, you need him to be consistently your best player. And if he's not being your best player on the pitch, he definitely needs to be your best off of it. And we all know Paul Pogba is not a guy that you look to and is like, yeah, that guy's a great locker room guy. That's just not the way it is for Paul Pogba. And I mean, I do got to give some props to Tottenham. I mean, they absolutely, dismantled Manchester United in this game and looked like, they were just the better or the more organized team. And for most of the season, I've been saying that Tottenham have looked like an absolute mess. And it's true, they have. But over the past few weeks, at least the last 2 weeks, they've brought it together, man. I mean, looking good in the Carabao Cup and now bringing it into the Premier League against Manchester United in Man U, like away from home. Like this ends up being, this is the first time Tottenham are the first visiting side to score 4 first half goals in a league game at Manchester United since they did it themselves in 1957. 57, that's half a century ago. More than half a century ago. Like, this was one of the worst losses for Manchester United. In fact, it's actually tied for the worst loss because they've lost by 5 goals 4 other times. The other time being against Manchester City in 2011. That's the most recent time. So it's been a while since that because, I mean, obviously you don't expect Manchester United to lose by 5 goals. But, I mean, obviously the red card had a part in it, but I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to say that, oh yeah, the only reason that they lost was because they got a red card. That's just, what is it saying? That's just deflecting, what is the true problem at Manchester United. And that's that they just don't have anybody, they don't seem to have any togetherness. Like, even when they were doing well last season, a lot of their goals were coming off of penalties. And yes, they have solid players that can draw those penalties, but when you need to get a goal, like a team goal, they had one in the Carabao Cup this past weekend, and that's what I was saying, like that they need to really, that's what they need to really look good, but they don't do that. They don't have those team goals where everyone seems connected and on the same page. Those rarely happen for them. But that was literally happening all night for Tottenham. And they got amazing performances. I mean, I loved what I saw from Sergio Reguilon, their new transfer. I mean, he's looked great for them. And Tottenham are just, they're on a roll. They're on a roll. There's no other way to put it. And this now means that Manchester United have lost their first 2 home games of this league campaign. And it's just the 5th time that that's happened in their history. Last time being like 20-something years ago. In 1987, I believe. It's just, it's terrible. I mean, and they got completely outplayed. I mean, they completed 83% of their passes to 90% of Tottenham. Tottenham as a team completed 90% of their 672 passes. That means that Man United were not letting them feel them whatsoever. And that's just unacceptable. For a team as big as Manchester United, you can't let that happen. But that's how she goes, and Manchester United are looking for answers. But next, we have an even crazier loss, because at least Tottenham, are one of the top sides, and you expect them to be at least in competition for some European football next season. But Liverpool, oh my God. This feels like for as long as I've been a fan, I knew when I was first a fan, 10 years ago, Liverpool were not, on the top of their game. They were kind of struggling to be in the, in the top of the Premier League, but they weren't losing like this. 7-2 to Aston Villa. And that's the worst part, to Aston Villa. I mean, I know that Aston Villa started off really strong this season, looking good in the Carabao Cup and looking good. Although I think they lost in the last round, but in the Premier League, they've looked really good. They've opened the league with 3 straight wins. First time they do that since 1962. I mean, so they're obviously having a historically good season for them. But for them to defeat the reigning champs 7-2, they're the first reigning champions of the English top flight to allow 7 goals in a match since Arsenal in 1953. Once again, more than half a century ago. What is going on here? These big European Premier League giants doing things in a bad way that hasn't been happening in half a century. This was a historic week, guys. I just want to make sure you understand that this was a historic week for these Premier League clubs in such a bad way. It's embarrassing, honestly. And I mean, for Aston Villa, you got to be feeling great, really great. Being able to hold on to Jack Grealish, and he gives you 2 goals, 3 assists. And brand new signing, Ollie Watkins, puts up a hat trick, and I think he also had an assist as well, or 2 assists. I mean, they were just on fire. And then, of course, for Liverpool, Mohamed Salah comes through for them. But in a way, this just goes to show you how important Sadio Mane is to this club. For them to, they're missing him due to injury. And I mean, people would. I remember when the talks last year about Mohamed Salah not being as good as Sadio Mane, and it was seemed as appalling because Salah has been the one to bring Liverpool back into the limelight, and I understand that, but the activity that Mane brings to the club, and I understand it's usually when both of them are together, and that's usually the key, because when you have those 2 top forwards on your team, it makes it easier to win games. But it just goes to show that his activity on both sides, he hustles on both sides of the field, and that makes a huge difference in this game. I mean, it's not going to make up a 5-goal difference. So there's still obviously some questions that Liverpool have to answer. I mean, not having Thiago as well because of, his COVID hurts. The COVID, him being positive for COVID obviously hurts. I mean, but you still got Virgil van Dijk back there. I mean, I know they don't have Alisson either, but the thing is they just have so much quality on their team. They should not be losing 7-2. That's honestly embarrassing. And I'm sure Liverpool fans are wondering what the heck is going on here. This is unacceptable. And for the most part, Liverpool looked like they were not dominating this game, because obviously within 20 minutes, 22 minutes, they were already down 2-0. So they were not dominating, and they did score back in the 33rd minute, but then literally 2 minutes later, John McGinn made it 3-1. And then 4 minutes after that, Ollie Watkins got his hat trick to make it 4-1. So they were down 4-0. They were down 4-1 at the half. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And of course, Jack Grealish, just a little cherry on top, gives you those 2 goals at the end of the game in the 66th minute and the 75th minute to make it 7-2. Just to make them feel so good. But Liverpool had control of most of this game. And by what I mean by that, they had 70% possession. Yet they had 4 less shots than Aston Villa. There's clearly something going on here that they need to correct, and Jurgen Klopp needs to go back to his tactics and see like what he needs to do different to make sure that they don't give up. I mean, obviously it's not going to happen. This kind of performance isn't going to happen again. Because like I said, I mean, it's been half a century since something this bad has happened. But it's and on top of that, it's the first time that they concede 7 goals in a match since 1963. And it's just, and on top of that, it's just the fact this is only the second time in Aston Villa's history that they have scored 7 goals in a single Premier League game. The other one being in 1995. So I mean, for both ways, Liverpool haven't lost this way in so long, and Aston Villa haven't scored this many in so long. So it's like how does this happen? I mean, of course, history, everything, it's always supposed to happen eventually, but I mean, not this Liverpool team that you see as one of the best. I mean, I don't know how you look at it now, but before this game, people were talking about them being one of the best Premier League teams that they've seen in a long, long time. Clearly, that's not the case, and clearly, they needed to make a couple more signings, and there's a reason that Jurgen Klopp was asking for it. Obviously, it just sucks. They didn't have the funds. They had to try to sell guys instead of really bringing people on. But they did bring in Thiago. But right now, this team is technically without any brand new signings, and it's showing. And that mistake is clearly showing. So hopefully, when they bring in Thiago and he can finally play for this club, he makes a big difference because. They need some control in that midfield. Jordan Henderson can't do it by himself. And, obviously Van Dijk. I mean, I think when you look at it, I know Joe Gomez is not terrible, but they clearly need, someone better there to tag alongside him. I thought Gomez was good enough, and clearly I'm wrong. And obviously not having Alisson. It's not said enough that missing him for a few weeks now is going to hurt them. Adrian is an excellent backup. That's why you bring him in and you have him, as your backup. But they are going to be missing Alisson for a second straight season because he was injured last season as well. So now this is starting to look like a major issue. And, I mean, they're going to have to clear that up. But, yeah, that's not looking good for Liverpool there, man. I mean, 7-2. My goodness. So next we got Leicester City losing 3-0 to West Ham United. And this one isn't as bad. I mean, even though, yes, it's 3-0, it's not as bad as losing 6-1 or 7-2. However, the reason I don't think it's as bad, despite it being against West Ham United, who aren't one of the worst teams in the league, in the Premier League, it's because Leicester City are dealing with so many injuries. They don't have Ricardo Pereira. They don't have Fuchs. They don't have Ndidi. There's so many and technically so many defensive guys that would help are not there. So they're obviously dealing with a lot of issues on that team. So losing 3-0, it's really, I don't see it as that big of an issue, especially with them, still like kind of dominating the game in terms of like possession. They had 70% possession. So, they did what they needed to do except score the goals. I mean, they had literally 0 shots on target, only 4 shots on the game. This is the first time, let's just say they failed to record a shot on target for just the 3rd time since 2003. For just the 3rd time. Like, so obviously, it might not be the offense that the defense that needs more guys. It's the offense, but I mean they're also missing James Maddison, their number 10. So I mean it's a lot of things that they're dealing with. Of course, it looks good that they're even though Fuchs was off the bench, I do think putting Wesley Fofana in would help. Even though they had him on the bench, not sure why, but yeah, they're definitely going to need help. But for West Ham, I mean, a solid win, man. Getting a win over Leicester City, who have looked like one of the better teams in the Premier League so far. You get goals from Mikel Antonio, Pablo Fornals, Jarrod Bowen. So an all-around solid team win for West Ham. And they've won successive Premier League games while keeping a clean sheet for the first time since last year, May 2019. So it's So, they're not usually known for being able to hold on to those clean sheets, but they've been able to do it now. And another solid fact for you guys, West Ham have won against the club that started the day in the top 2 of the Premier League for the first time since 2017. They've lost 9 and drawn 2 since then. So obviously, West Ham got a pretty lucky draw here with Leicester dealing with so many injuries. But in the end, I think Leicester City is going to be fine. They, Pereira is expected to come back at the end of October. Madison looks like he's day-to-day, so he should be back any minute now. Fuchs was on the bench, so obviously maybe they just didn't think he had enough. He wasn't fit for this game yet. So, you'll be seeing him in there. And Wesley Fofana. I think that Wesley Fofana can definitely make a big difference for their defense. And really, make a difference. I think I said that already. So, for Leicester City, no need to worry. But however, for the other 2 teams I mentioned in this, Liverpool, Manchester United, especially Manchester United, they need to get their stuff together. There are some good things that I need to mention about Manchester United later on in the show, but make sure you guys stick around for that. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about the Champions League group stage and previewing Group C and Group D.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, I talked about the Premier League collapses that we saw this past week. And now we're going to be talking about our favorite competition, the Champions League. And like a couple days ago, I talked about groups A and B and, just previewing those teams, how they've done in the Champions League up until this point in their history, and the top players and where would they finish in the group. And now I'm going to be doing the same thing for groups C and D, where we have some top Premier League sides. So let's just get right into that with Group C that has Manchester City, Porto, Marseille, and Olympiacos. Now, this, to me, is a very, very easy group for Manchester City. You have some interesting competition going on for the second place and, of course, for the Europa spot. But in terms of who's going to lead this group, I don't think there's any question. Manchester City just have way too much quality here. But the thing is, even with all the money that they've put into this club, Pep Guardiola, and that Man City board have put in a lot of money. I believe I remember seeing the total bill that they said they were already over $1 billion or €1 billion in funds for this team, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, people talk, crap about, or I can't say that, but people talk bad about PSG and their oil money, but man, if you're looking at Manchester City, I mean, that's bad. That's a lot of money. And for them to not win a single Champions League and not even make it to the final, no less. Their best finish has been the semi-final when they lost to Real Madrid in 2015-16. That was their best finish. I don't think Man City gets enough criticism as much as PSG do, because I understand PSG, you want to hate on them more because they have, Neymar, and they got the golden boy, Kylian Mbappe. But anyway, I'm getting off traffic because that's, of course, PSG's my team. I cannot stand when people just talk a lot of, garbage about them. When you got this ridiculous, expensive team in Manchester City that have had 3 straight quarterfinal exits and around the 16 exit in 2016-17. So it's like, I just don't know how they, don't get enough. But, I mean, especially with the kind of quality that they have on their team. I mean, you got Kevin De Bruyne. You have Raheem Sterling, Gabriel Jesus. You got Laporte, Ederson. I mean, the list goes on. Fernandinho. Phil Foden, I feel, is going to be a big-time part in this team. But, I mean, they just have so much in that squad, and I feel like they need to get a lot. And if they don't win it this year, I mean, it's just going to continue. That criticism is going to continue, and I'm not going to stop at that because I expect big things from Manchester City. Same thing as the fans. The fans should expect big things from Manchester City, and I'm sure they're upset with the failings that they've had in the Champions League, especially last season when they lost to. When they lost to Lyon? Like, come on. I would have for sure preferred a match against, Bayern and Manchester City. Come on. That would be huge. But to lose to Lyon and the way that they did, I remember that time when Raheem Sterling missed an absolutely wide open shot, and then Lyon come right back and score one of their own from Dembele. I mean, that was just that moment right there kind of like epitomizes everything that has gone with Manchester City in their European or Champions League hopes. They just always seem to fail when it matters most. So aside from that, I expect big things from Manchester City this season, which includes a group a lead in this group, finishing first. I don't know what I was trying to say there. I was like mixing my words up, not sure how to finish that sentence. But yeah, so I expect them to finish first in this group by a mile. And they might actually be the most, the best team or the most impressive team throughout this group because of the easy matchups they have. And I'm not trying to diss Porto or Marseille or Olympiacos. But when you look at the quality, it's night and day. It's night and day. But now let's get into Porto, who have been one of the most active teams in the transfer deadline. They've won the Champions League twice, one in 87 and another in 04. Some of you may remember more that 2004 win when they had Jose Mourinho going up against Monaco, and Didier Deschamps was managing them. A huge 3-0 victory for Porto in that game, and so they obviously have won this competition, but obviously no one's still on that squad from that back then. But they do have some veteran presences in Pepe, who has done big things at Real Madrid. I mean, you got Otavio, who's going to be a huge playmaker for them with Alex Telles no longer there. But then you also have Jesus Corona, who led the team in assists last season. They got some big time players. But then aside from those that have already been on the team, Porto recently added Malang Sarr, Marco Grujic, and Felipe Anderson, all Premier League studs that come into this team and are expected to be a big-time part in them. Big time. But I just don't see them making it into the knockout rounds this year. Although, with those additions, it definitely is going to be extremely close. But I still see them finishing third and going into the Europa League. Although I would personally like to see Porto making it into the next round, I don't see that happening. I just don't. I feel like adding all these, because for me, even though when Chelsea signed all those brand new players, I was high on Chelsea, and it's taking them a little while to get accustomed to playing together. I feel like the same thing is going to happen here with Porto, even though they also have a lot of solid players throughout their lineup that aren't just being added. But I don't expect those recent signings to be huge for them in the Champions League. I mean, maybe they can make a difference, especially I think Felipe Anderson has a chance. But still, I see them finishing third and not really making a huge push for that final, for that knockout round spot. Next, we have Marseille. And they've won the Champions League once back in 1993, just before I was born, beating out AC Milan. So, and from what I've heard as a soccer fan, AC Milan were at the top of their game back in the day. So that's obviously a huge, huge win. And I love this Marseille team. They finished second in the league Ligue 1 last year and have a lot of good quality in their side. Dario Benedetto, Florian Thauvin, Dimitri Payet, of course, Steve, and of course Morgan Sanson. All those guys are going to be big-time players in their attack. But then you also have the captain, Steve Mandanda, who I feel is going to be the biggest factor in this group stage. Obviously, I'm not seeing them defeat Manchester City. I mean, maybe getting a draw. But, I mean, for the most part, I see Mandanda, and then, of course, their young defender, Duje Caleta making a big-time difference in this group. I feel like those two players are going to be literally the keys in order to be able to make it past into the knockout rounds, and I see them doing that. Representing Ligue 1 and getting into the knockout rounds and showing that French football is actually stepping up and actually getting through. If they don't, and Porto go through, like I said, I'd be happy with that as well, because I would like to see Porto and all those, new signings and players, even though Alex Telles isn't there anymore, I would be happy to see that happen, going through as well. But I do see Marseille finishing second in this group because, I don't know, I see more, what is it? What am I trying to say here? I see a better collective effort here and more team play. Like, these guys have been there together for a few years now. I didn't think Florian Thauvin was going to be there, but he is. The same thing with Morgan Sanson, but he's still there. So they got all that quality that's been together for a few years now, and I feel like that's going to make ultimately the biggest difference in this group. Next, we have Olympiacos. Now, they have made it to the group stage consistently over the past 2 decades, but their best finish was a quarterfinal finish in 1998-99. They did have a round 16 appearance in 2007-2008, but that's about as good as it got for Olympiacos. But I do not see that happening this time around. I mean, it's not like they're in a really tough group. I mean, of course they can make a run. They have some solid attacking players like Youssef El Arabi and Mohamed Kamara, who can, definitely make a big difference. And Ruben Vanegre, who is on loan from the Wolves, and Ruben Semedo and Jose Sa round out that defense. I mean, I do feel like they have good quality in their team. Just when you're talking about having to consistently score against teams like Marseille, Porto, and Manchester City, I just don't see it happening, and I feel like they're going to finish last in this group. And that seems about as good as it can get for Olympiacos. Now, of course, for some of these younger players, they are going to be getting some good experience in the Champions League, being able to go against these top sides. So there's always positives to go around in the Champions League, but as far as moving on, that is not going to be happening for Olympiacos. So next we have Group D. Group D, I'm very excited to see this three-headed race between Liverpool, Atalanta, and Ajax. And lastly, I'm going to go for this name, but I'm probably going to say it wrong. Midtjylland. Probably wrong on that one, but you know what? Let's just go with it. I'm very excited to see the fight between Liverpool, Atalanta, and Ajax. The playing field is a little bit more leveled, especially if Liverpool can't get back Alisson, and who knows about Sadio Mane right now. It's obviously going to be more leveled. If they have those two guys, I feel like Liverpool easily finishes this group. Even without them, at least at the start of the group, I still feel like they have enough quality to get through. I mean, come on, they have Mohamed Salah, Virgil van Dijk. Thiago's probably will be cleared by COVID by then. And then, of course, you got those fullbacks in Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andrew Robertson. You have way too much quality on this team to fail. And they've won the Champions League a total of 6 times. They won back-to-back titles in 77, 78, won twice more in the 80s, in 81 and 84. And then in the 21st century, they won in 05, and then they won, of course, 2 years ago in 2019. So this club specifically, this team that is together right now, has experience winning it all. And I feel like that's going to be a big-time factor in this series. I mean, of course, I'm thinking too much NBA. In this group, as you got Atalanta and Ajax, who are 2 young teams who are just now Ajax are always young. But of course, you got Atalanta, who are just now experiencing Champions League football on a regular basis. And I feel like that's eventually going to catch up to them in terms of all the extra games that they're playing and the players not getting used to that. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to make it past this group. I mean, I'm about to talk about that next. But yes, I do expect Liverpool, no problem, even if they don't have Sadio Mane and Alisson, even though those are 2 very key players, not trying to say they aren't important, I still feel like Liverpool have enough quality to finish first in this group. I'm not going to be the guy that says that they're going to finish second. That will not be me. So, yes, they're going to be finishing first. Next, we have Atalanta. Now, Atalanta have mainly battled in the Europa League in their history, and not even that much. Like, honestly, throughout the 90s, they barely got any time there, and in the early 2000s as well, they barely got there. But last season, they made it all the way to the quarterfinals of the Champions League, losing to PSG, who eventually made it to the finals. Now, this Atalanta group is one of the most exciting ones to watch. Like, if you are not a big-time soccer fan, and you just want to, be a fan of a team that is going to be exciting to watch, I completely recommend Atalanta. You will not be disappointed. They don't have a lot of big-time names, even though Papu Gomez, Josip Ilicic, Duvan Zapata, those are all really solid attacking players. But they're not like household names. They're not a Mbappe. They're not even like, I don't know. I'm not going to even compare it because, they are really good players, and I feel like it would just be disrespecting them. Those are really great players. And last season, they're pretty much bringing the same team back onto this group. You still got Jose Palomino in defense, Robin Gosens, who I absolutely love in that right back spot, and then of course Mario Pasalic, who they bring back from Chelsea. He was on loan last season, successful loan spell. They bring him back permanently. You just have an overall great Atalanta squad who knows how to play together, and I feel like the fact that they went through those experiences last season, making it to the quarterfinals, and honestly, they should have probably been in the semifinal. Even though PSG got those 2 late goals, I know I'm a PSG fan, but man, I give my props to Atalanta because they played such a great game against PSG. They were up 1-0 for most of this game. Pasalic was the one that scored the goal, and it just slipped through their fingers. I could see them having just as good a run this season, even though the extra added, games on them that they're not used to could play a factor. I just don't think it'll play as big a factor, and I see them finishing second in this league. Now, you will need to get Josip Ilicic back to playing, top-notch football because, like you guys probably know, he was considering retiring last season after the tragic stuff that happened to him. I don't want to talk about it, but if you want to find out, look him up and see what happened with him. But they're going to need to get him back into, playing shape. But, regardless, they still got Duvan Zapata, who can play a big-time role in that attack, even if he's not there. And then, of course, they got probably, honestly, this might be going very far, but they feel like they have the best playmaker in this entire group. Even though I love what Trent Alexander-Arnold brings to Liverpool, and, you got some solid dribbling skills from Mohamed Salah, but in terms of just straight-up playmaking, Papu Gomez is probably the best in this group. He can do it all for this team, and he's going to play a big factor in what they do. Now, next, we have Ajax, and they've won this competition 4 times, not recently, though. They did have a 3-peat in the 70s from 71 to 73, and then they won it again in 95 when I was 1 year old. But I definitely like this team, especially their defense. They have Nicolas Tagliafico, who is one of the best fullbacks in the world, does it all on both ends. You have Daley Blind, who is another veteran presence that brings a lot of solid, just does the right things every time. And then, of course, you have one of the best goalkeepers name-wise. You have Andre Onana, who, is an excellent goalkeeper, excellent number one goalkeeper. Not one of the best in the world, but he is a solid starter. And then, of course, you got guys in the attack. You have Quincy Promes, you have David Neres, Dusan Tadic, the captain. So you have some solid players here that can definitely give Atalanta some trouble. But I don't feel like they have enough in the offensive end to really keep up with Atalanta. Like, Atalanta just have, attackers on attackers, and I feel like they have enough defense to really make it, regardless, these Ajax-Atalanta games are going to be super fun to watch. Just saying, this is going to be probably the funnest matches to watch in this group, even though, those Atalanta-Liverpool games are obviously going to be fun, but this Ajax-Atalanta matches are going to be straight fireworks. Trust me on this. If you want to see some good football, some attacking football, you watch this match, because they're going to be back and forth. You might see some 5-4, 4-3 matches, no doubt in my mind. But in the end, I feel like Ajax just doesn't have enough to hang with Atalanta, so I see them finishing third in this group. Now, moving on to Midtjylland. Now, this is the first time they make the group stage in the Champions League. They primarily play in the Europa League, and they always have to go through the qualifiers and the playoff match, and they have not been able to get over the hump. But this season they do. So this is huge, historic season for Midtjylland. However, I feel like it's going to end here. They have some top players in Evander and Pion Sisto, even our Mabil and Soricaba, but I mean the quality is just so much less than all three teams. I can easily see them losing literally every game, maybe getting a draw or two here and there, but for the most part, this team is not going to have enough to hang with the top three teams in this group, and I see them finishing last. Now, if they surprise me and they get a win over Ajax or Atalanta, who knows? Liverpool, we just saw them lose 7-2 to Aston Villa. We just talked about it. So who knows? Even though comparing Aston Villa to Midtjylland is just kind of disrespectful, I'll eat my words, because I'm obviously going to keep talking about these group stages and how it goes through between these teams. But regardless, I still see them finishing fourth in this group. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because next I'm going to be talking about some transfer deadline deals that are just so amazing, so juicy to talk about. I can't wait. I just can't wait. But I'm going to have to. So, see you guys then.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, we talked about the Group C and D of the Champions League. Just previewed the teams, top players who I felt were going to finish first to last. And now, we're going to be getting into some of the top transfer deadline deals going on in the world. And I'm just going to talk about, like what they mean for the team and, what it means for the player itself. So first, I'm obviously going to get into some PSG deals. And they were able to acquire midfielder Rafinha from Barca. And I mean, for such a cheap deal, I think it was like 3 million euros, 5 million euros. I mean, what is Barca doing? I mean, I understand they had him on loan to Celta Vigo. And they kind of didn't have him in his plans because Ronald Koeman was looking at other players. But, I mean, by all means, let us have him. Let us have him. I will take Rafinha. I mean, he adds such... he's one of those signings that I was talking about that we needed. Similar to what Ander Herrera brings you, what Keylor Navas brings you. That veteran leadership and that just that poise and that just that great locker room guy in Rafinha. And I was looking at the training or his first meetings with players on Instagram or on Twitter it was, and I know they're supposed to be like, hey, how's it going? But you can't fake the way some of these guys were hugging him and super happy to see him. I mean, this is such a great deal for PSG, especially with the top. With the high expectations that they have going into the season, to have a guy like Rafinha that has been there, done that, knows what it takes to win the big thing. I don't know if he was part of those Barca Champions League years, but regardless, he has played with Barca for so long. He has played big time games, and he might not start, but he adds excellent depth per PSG. And on top of that, they were able to add Moise Kean from Everton and Danilo Pereira from Porto on loan. Pereira's deal has an option to buy. Now, for Moise Kean, I feel like we definitely needed some of that extra depth in the attack, especially at that striker position. And he brings a lot of pace, and we were dealing, we had Koulibaly, or I forgot his name, but it was a young player that we're trying to extend, probably send out on loan, and that wasn't going to cut it. If you're in the, you got to think about it, because you want to win the big, the Champions League, and God forbid you have Mauro Icardi going down. You're obviously not going to go with the youngin to take over that spot. You're going to go with Mbappe, who's obviously a top player to play that spot, and you're gonna have to try to fill in around him. With Moise Kean, you have a guy who has played in the Premier League, the one of the top, the top league in the world, and a guy who has just been looking for somewhere to play, and when he was playing, he was good. He's a good player. And I'm excited to have him. I don't feel like he's going to be getting a lot of time. I mean, you might see him in some of those League Cup matches, like the Coupe de la Liga, even though I think that's no longer around. But regardless, or the Coupe de France, you're going to see him in some of those games. However, for Danilo Pereira, my goodness, to be able to get this defensive midfielder, I remember when I'm playing FIFA and I'm doing my manager mode and I had PSG, because I usually always go for PSG, although lately I've been trying to go for those lower division teams so I can bring them up and kind of work my way onto a big club, because just to sign for PSG to just instantly become their manager, it kind of feels fake. So it's no, I go for but aside from that, I'm rambling. When I would play manager mode with PSG, Danilo Pereira from Porto would be one of the signings I would always try to get, because I love what he brings on the defensive end, and that's the one area I felt that the PSG could have used more help, especially when you no longer have Thiago Silva, so you have to go with Marquinhos and Kimpembe in the back, when Marquinhos has been doing really well in that defensive midfielder spot. Now, I don't feel like Pereira would start right away, although I could most definitely see him fill in the starting 11. And the biggest difference from Pereira over a guy like Gay or Marco Verratti is that he adds size in that spot. That's what I feel they needed the most. A defensive midfielder who has size and can bang with some of those big time forwards. We don't have that. We haven't had that in some time. since like Thiago Motta, really. And I don't even think he has the kind of skill that Danilo Pereira has. No disrespect to Motta. I mean, the guy's a legend of the club. You know, he's coaching in the youth teams now. But Danilo Pereira, huge time loan. And with the option to buy for, I think it was like 15 million euros. Huge. I love it. Next, we have Arsenal completing a 45 million euro signing of Thomas Partey. Now, this was something that has been talked about for a while. I wasn't sure if it was going to officially be done by the transfer deadline, but it has been done. And they get a big-time defensive midfielder that they've been needing, and I feel that literally completes that Arsenal team. You know, because they had a great bringing in Gabriel, having David Luiz as you know for some depth. You just were missing that solid midfielder that can get you going on the offensive end, which he is a great passer, and can obviously stop on the defensive end in the midfield. He's going to control that midfield for Arsenal. That was huge for them. And of course, Lucas Torreira heads the other way on a 1-year loan to Atletico. And I mean, that is just huge for them. To be able to bring in Thomas Partey, and that was something that I was thinking. I was thinking they would have had to let go of Alexander Lacazette in order to get Thomas Partey. But to just let go of Torreira, who they weren't even using in the first place, huge deal for Arsenal. And now they get to keep Lacazette, who's been actually playing pretty well for them. You got Aubameyang there, you got Willian. Now you got a team that can, and if he joins this team and fits in smoothly, man, you can have a team that can be really making noise in this Premier League. Probably, maybe with the way Manchester United is failing, the way Chelsea isn't really playing at their top ability, they can squeeze into that top 4 spot. Honestly, watch out for Arsenal now, man. I'm really excited to see their team, see Partey play for them. Next, we have this one. This was a signing even though people are saying that this isn't news, this is obvious, like there was no way that Juve were not going to get this guy, but man, I was just like, wow. For Fiorentina to let go of Federico Chiesa on loan to Juve with an option to buy for 40 million euros, I mean, my God, the rich just get richer. And I know he's not going to right away get time, but I mean, to just add him into the midfield, I like what they already have up top, you know, with Ronaldo, Morata, and was it Dujan Kulisevich? I think I got that name right. But man, to just add Federico Chiesa to that already. I mean, what I would hate to see, what usually happens with top teams, is when they bring in a kid like that, they send them out on loan for him to get time. But I think he should definitely be playing, coming off the bench, maybe starting a few games. Because Chiesa, he's a top talent. And he brings a lot of that flair to Juve. And I'm really excited to see how that plays out. Next, we got Everton picking up defender Ben Godfrey from Norwich. I wasn't sure that Ben Godfrey was actually going to leave Norwich. I know Norwich were trying to look for a big-time deal for him, and now for him to move to Everton, a big-time club who is looking like one of the upcoming clubs now in the Premier League. Huge move for Everton, huge move for Ben Godfrey, and they add to that defense and gives them much more versatility in that team. Like, if there was any place that they needed to improve, it was their defense, and they did just that. And I mean, Everton are making moves, man. They're making moves. Like, they are not settling. They are not satisfied with doing well so far this season. Bringing in Ben makes a huge difference for this team. And I'm super excited to see what he adds for them. Next, we have Mario Götze, who signs with PSV. Now, I mean, how the mighty have fallen. I mean, even though PSV is a very, very solid team. Very, very solid team. I believe they're in the Dutch league. And Götze is a very good player, but he has not lived up to the expectations that people were expecting of him. At this point in his career, which I think he's like 28, 27, in the prime of his career. People were expecting him in a top club, thriving at Bayern, actually. And that obviously did not work out. From his game winner to World Cup in the World Cup to just failing to live up to expectations. And he's gonna need to, really right his wrongs there at PSV. And I feel like he could, a smaller club, even though they're obviously doing really well where they are, one of the top clubs in their league. In the end, I feel like it's a solid move for both. And Götze is probably going to get some time there, and he, if he can find his form, get back to the top, it'll be a good, storybook ending for Götze. Now let's get into some Manchester United talks. Like I said, I was going to. Manchester United signed Edinson Cavani. They brought in Cavani. I mean, obviously the top transfer target was Jadon Sancho for so long, but apparently they were going to have to pay somewhere around $300 million to bring him in. Like, in total fees and all that. And that's a ridiculous number. I'm sorry, you just don't do that. And even though it would have been such a big time signing in terms of, like the name, and everyone would have been super excited to have, Jadon Sancho at Manchester United, the new golden boy. Getting Cavani is huge. And this is what I mean that they needed in terms of a veteran presence that can galvanize this team. Nobody doesn't like Cavani. I loved Cavani when he was at PSG. The amount of work that he put in for the team and for the club, all-time leading goal scorer for PSG. Huge. I mean, not only is he a huge work rate, but he gets goals. He was one of the best strikers in the world for so long. And for Manchester United to get him is huge. And he's going to wear the number 7, that legendary number 7 of Manchester United. So they obviously have him in the plans for this season. It'll be interesting to see how Gunnar Solskjaer uses him. But they needed Cavani. Even though he's not like the be all end all for this team, it's not going to just absolutely change the culture, but he's going to help so many of those young players. Rashford, Greenwood especially, who's trying to learn to be a top-notch striker in the world of football, and he's well on his way. But now adding a veteran presence like Cavani is going to do wonders for him. He's going to teach him how to play the game. He's going to teach him not just how to be good on the field, but of course off the field, and that's what I was talking about. It's the same thing that Thiago Silva brings Chelsea, even though he's struggling there right now. What he brings off the field is invaluable. And it's the same thing that Cavani's going to be doing. Another thing that Manchester United did, they signed Amad Diallo Traore from Atalanta for 41 million euros. He hasn't played much for them, but the teenager has impressed enough, and apparently Manchester United have been on his trail for about a year now, and they got their man. This is one of those things where they brought him in to loan him out and eventually bring him back so he can play big for the team, because they just have way too many guys up front to really give him any sort of time. Even in League Cups, I feel like even Jesse Lingard would be there. However, it looks like he could be on the way out. That is yet to be seen yet, but solid signing for Traore. I mean, I don't really know what the kid can do. Haven't really seen much from him. But to pay 41 million euros for a kid that only played 3 games in Serie A last season, he's got to be pretty good. So, solid. Obviously, not the trade deadline deals that Manchester United fans wanted to see, but still solid signings nonetheless. Next, we have Chelsea sending out Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Malang Sarr out on loan. Like I said, Malang Sarr, I talked about him recently, got loaned out to Porto. And then you got Ruben Loftus-Cheek also getting loaned out. Kind of what you needed for these young guys to really get time and play first team soccer. Because if not, they're kind of just wasting their time there. And I wasn't really sure about this. I did not think Malang Sarr was going to move out. But they obviously feel like they have enough. They like Antonio Rudiger more. They got Zuma and then, of course, Thiago Silva. So they feel like Malang Sarr was on the outside looking in. So moving him out was a very smart move. Same thing with Loftus-Cheek. giving them time, and then they'll bring them back next season and see if they can find some space in that team. Now, aside from Sarr, Porto, like I said, man, they were super active in this transfer deadline, bringing in Malang Sarr, and then, of course, Felipe Anderson and Marco Grujic. Huge loan moves. And then they're also interested in bringing in Jesse Lingard. I mean, not that Jesse Lingard is like a huge-time player. He's obviously fallen out of favor at Manchester United, has not lived up to expectations, but maybe a change of scenery is what he needs. And that would be huge for Porto, just to bring in all these players, because they're obviously gearing up for a big-time Champions League run. They're focusing on that heavily. So I like that. Now, this next move I am so happy to hear about. Chris Smalling completing that 15 million euro move to Roma. After a successful loan spell last season with Roma, he gets that well-earned move to Roma permanently. He says his farewells to Manchester United, where he's been for so long, his parent club for so long. But now he is moving on, going to Roma, and this is the move that Roma needed. They needed to shore up that back line, and Smalling did that for him. I love this move. I am 10 out of 10. The move that needed to happen, even it looked like Smalling might have, possibly been moving somewhere else in Serie A, no less. That would have just been devastating for Roma, but they get their man and are now looking very good. I like it. After that 2-2 draw against Juve, now getting Smalling, just nothing but good news for Roma. Next, we have Alex Telles moving to Manchester United on a 4-year deal. Some more Manchester United news. I mean, bringing in a top fullback from Porto. I mean, he's obviously a great playmaker. And they clearly felt like they needed some depth there. Because they got Wan-Bissaka on the right. On the left, they have too many young players, and that's probably where they're going to want to fit him in there. They got Brandon Williams, who has shown that he's got potential, but to rely on a guy like Brandon Williams in the Champions League, no less, that is not, you don't want that. You just don't. So I like this Alex Telles move for Manchester United, and it gives them some solid, presence on that fullback. Now you got two solid fullbacks to have in the Champions League, and it's going to do wonders for Manchester United. Next, we have the knucklehead from Arsenal, Matteo Guendouzi, joining Hertha Berlin on a season-long loan. Now, this was something that we weren't sure what was going to happen. Guendouzi clearly talking about his complaining a lot at Arsenal and not wanting to be there anymore because he feels like he was a scapegoat. But honestly, he's one of the biggest knuckleheads in the entire world of football, to be honest. And I mean, it's a good move for Hertha Berlin because he has great talent. But I mean, can they handle his ego? Because now for him to have that kind of ego at a big team at like Arsenal, and now moving to Hertha Berlin, my God, I don't even want to imagine what's going to happen there. But let's stick with the Bundesliga and talk about some of the Bayern Munich signings. They were active. They signed my man, Choupo-Moting. I mean, that guy is going to be good for them. I mean, he's obviously going to be coming off the bench. He might not even get much time. But if he does, he is one of those guys that I would have loved to keep at PSG. I was so sad to see him go because he gives his heart and soul to the club he plays for. Those are the kind of players you want. And that is exactly what Bayern Munich is getting. They also getting Bouana Sarr, the fullback from Marseille, with Michael Cuisance, who I talked about in the last episode, heading in the opposite direction to Ligue 1. Finally gets his move out of there because he was getting no time. And so clearly they wanted Sarr as a little insurance in that right back spot for Pavard. And it's good because they obviously like Kimmich in that midfielding spot because that guy is an absolute god. So they want to keep him there. But then they also brought in Douglas Costa on loan from Juve. I mean, come on. I know Douglas Costa fell out of favor with Andrea Pirlo, and he didn't even play that much last season. But come on, Bayern Munich really now getting Douglas Costa? Like, I know he's not like a huge game changer, but he just adds way more depth to this team. A team that didn't need more depth, to be honest. Now, another one. Now, lastly, I'm just a quick little note. Houssem Aouar is staying at Lyon. It's been talked about a lot about whether he was going to move to Arsenal, but clearly Arsenal made the moves that they wanted to with bringing in Partey, and Aouar is staying at Lyon. Good news for Lyon, but I mean only for 1 year. I don't expect him to stay there any longer. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for the transfer deadline part of this show. Make sure you guys stick around because when I come back, we're going to be talking about the top 10 center backs of all time.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, I talked about all the deadline transfer news going on in the world. You know, we got a lot of good stuff going on. And now we're going to be talking about the top 10 center backs of all time. Now, what makes a really good center back in the world today? I mean, you know, you want it to be really tall. 7 feet tall sounds good. Extremely quick, extremely tough. You know, head like a freaking rock. Like you want it all. And these 10 guys coming up literally have it all. You know, I mean, not saying that they're 7 feet tall, but they are all extremely tough. You know, one of the most hard-nosed players of all time. And I am extremely excited to get into this list. Now, before I get into it, to find the stats for these guys, it's not possible. Because back in the day, they never took stats on defenders, you know, just yellow cards, red cards. So I'm just going to be talking about like their accomplishments. And I base these rankings off, you know, like what I did a lot of research, you know, looking at what people would say about these defenders, you know, what they did, you know, in the world. And that is what I based my rankings on. So let's get right into this with number 10 being Elias Figueroa. Elias Figueroa was a winner everywhere he went. One of the best defenders of his time. You know, won 3 Uruguayan championships, 2 Brazilian championships, 2 Chilean national championships, 5 Campeonato Guacho championships. He was the Brazilian League best central defender 4 times and the 2-time Brazilian League Player of the Year. I mean, he was one of the best to ever do it. I mean, it's hard to really say into words what this man did for his clubs whenever he put out there. He laid it on the line, just straight up on the line, and was one of the best to ever do it. So Elias Figueroa definitely makes it a number 10. I mean, there was a lot of guys that you can put here, but for the most part, I had to go with him. I mean, there was some that I was thinking about. I mean, you know, I had thoughts on maybe putting Virgil van Dijk here because of what he's done over his career in Liverpool. You know, there's some other guys that you can think of, like, I don't know. Hold on. You know, I was thinking about like Jose Andredada, you know, Ruud Krol, because I know he's been a really good player, especially in Netherlands. A lot of people consider him one of the best Netherlands defenders of all time. Bertie Volts. But in the end, I still believe Elias Figueroa, you know, just what he did for Chile throughout his career was just unbelievable and certainly deserves to be up here on this list. Next, we have the best scoring defender of all time in Ronald Koeman. Now the defender of Barcelona, Ronald Koeman has been one of the best defenders throughout his time and easily deserves to be on this list. He actually holds the record for most goals scored by a defender, and it certainly deserves to be up here. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that this guy is one of the best defenders of all time. I mean, he had 78 caps for Netherlands, 14 goals for them, played for Barcelona for so many years, won 4 La Liga titles for them, including a Champions League title in 1992. He won 4 Eredivisie titles, Dutch titles, throughout his time there, 3 with PSV, 1 with Ajax, plus a European Cup, Champions League in 1988 for PSV. He also holds the record for 25 consecutive penalties scored in La Liga. Huge honor and just an overall dynamite scorer throughout his time playing soccer. He also won Dutch Footballer of the Year twice and European Defender of the Year twice as well in 88 and 92. So, I mean, this guy was just, aside from being such an amazing scorer, was a great defender as well. I mean, there's no reason he would be on here, if he wasn't a great defender. So, Ronald Koeman absolutely comes in at number 9. Next, we have Sergio Ramos. Now, Sergio Ramos is obviously still playing and to me deserves to be on this list as as one of the greatest of all time. He's still got a little bit left to go, and the fact that he's already number 8 just goes to show what kind of a career he has had. You either hate this guy or you absolutely love him if you're a Real Madrid fan. To be able to take that captain spot from Iker Casillas just goes to show what kind of a player he is and what kind of respect he holds in that locker room. He has had an illustrious career. I mean, 5-time La Liga champion, 4-time Champions League winner. He won the World Cup in 2010, a 10-time FIFA 5 Pro World 11, 8-time UEFA Team of the Year. And the list goes on and on. And honestly, when I look back at Ronald Koeman and his 253 goals in his career over 533 matches played, I consider Ramos one of the, because obviously I haven't seen most of these defenders on this list. Sergio Ramos is really the only one I've actually seen. And I consider Ramos to be a really, really good scorer for a defender. So for Koeman to nearly triple his goal scored, I mean, I know I'm kind of like hyping Koeman right now while I'm talking about Ramos, but it's still really ridiculous for what he was able to to do for his career. So, but Sergio Ramos certainly, in terms of being a leader, has certainly been better, and just you want him on your team at all times. That is just a fact. You do not want to be going up against him. No doubt about it. So Sergio Ramos comes in at number 8. Number 7, we have Gaitano Sierra, the Italian center back who won the World Cup in 1982 and just, did so much winning for Juve in his years there, won 14 trophies in total with the club. He led Juve's defense that led a Juve defense that conceded less than 20 goals in 5 of his 7 Serie A title-winning seasons. I mean, a huge, huge accomplishment. I mean, and this guy was just an absolute stud throughout his entire career. He also won the Coppa Italia 2 times, was in the World Cup 3 separate years from 1978 to 1986, and was just a hell of a player. I mean, just his tackling was just so graceful. I mean, I saw some of his highlights, and it was really, really impressive what he was able to do throughout his years. He won the 1980 UEFA Euro Best Defender and, was the runner-up in the Intercontinental Cup in 1985. So, I mean, he's gone through his time as a winner and as a straight-up, nasty defender throughout his years. So, Gaitano Sierra absolutely deserves to be number 7. Could fall a little lower with Sergio Ramos continuing to play, but right now he's at number 7. Number 6, we have Daniel Passarella, the Argentinian defender who also was known for his goal scoring, scored 182 goals in his 556 matches played. Absolutely ridiculous. When you consider that Ramos actually played more and has almost twice as fewer goals as Passarella. I mean, Passarella was an absolute monster. I mean, I wish I could have seen these guys play. He's the only player on this list to have won 2 World Cups. One in 78, one in 86, and he was actually the youngest player to captain his side to a World Cup victory. I mean, to be able to captain your side to a World Cup victory and be the youngest to do so, that is huge. I mean, just ridiculous. He won the South American Defender of the Year 3 separate times, and actually 3 consecutive years from 1978 to 1980. He was the FIFA World Cup Best Defender in 1978. So aside from being the youngest player to captain his side, he was also the best defender in that tournament. Just an absolute monster monster year for Daniel Passarella, and just goes to show what he's done for, throughout his career. He helped River Plate in Argentina win the Primera Division 6 times, and was just an absolute monster throughout his career. So Daniel Passarella, absolutely monster at number 6. Now at number 5, we have Fabio Cannavaro. Cannavaro was just an absolute monster and defender throughout his years. 506 matches played, and his best season was in 2006, where he was pretty much probably the best player in the entire world. I mean, he was the best player in the entire world. Won the Ballon d'Or in 2006. Literally one of just 2 players to win that award, in this entire list. And that goes a long way. That's exactly why he's here at number 5. He also won 3 domestic league champions, won the World Cup in 2006, was UEFA Team of the Year in 2006. I mean, that was one of the most unbelievable seasons by a defender in 2006. And that was just before I became a huge fan. And I wish I would have been able to see what Fabio Cannavaro, was like. I mean, I saw some of his highlights, and he was extremely impressive. It was just amazing to see what he did. He did record 11 goals for a defender in 1982, which was a record at the time in Serie A. That was eventually broken by Marco Materazzi. With like the way modern soccer is now, defenders are asked to do a little bit more. But back in the day, that was just absolutely unbelievable. So huge stuff from Cannavaro during his years, and that is exactly why he comes in at number 5. Now, number 4, we have Alessandro Nesta. Alessandro Nesta, one of the best Italian defenders of all time, the second on my list, and I mean, he just did so many things throughout his years. He won 3 Serie A champions, 3 Serie A titles, won the Champions League twice, was the World Cup champion in 2006 alongside Cannavaro, and made it to the UEFA Team of the Year 4 times, FIFA 5 Pro World 11 2 times, and just like how graceful he was whenever he was on the pitch. I mean, it just looked like whenever you needed something to happen, he was doing it, and was just an absolutely unbelievable player. The only thing that sucked is that he got injured in such terrible situations. He actually missed the last game in the 2006 World Cup, so he wasn't able to be a part of that final game to give his country that win. But no doubt in my mind, he is considered one of the greatest defenders in the world during that, first half of the 2000s. He was known for just being such an amazing tackler, and whenever he needed to lay it out for his club, he did, and that was partly why he was, injured very often. So Nesta did win, 5 European Footballer of the Year awards in 2000 and was the 5th best defender in Italian Serie A in the early 2000s, which he won the Defender of the Year almost every single season. He was known for his talent to manage, opponent attackers. He had great agility and was an amazing, he was a very intelligent player, and he had great anticipation. So Nesta, absolutely huge player in his career. Next, we have at number 3, Franco Berasi. Now, these next few players are just no doubt about it. Like you're reaching another tier. This is no doubt in my mind the top players of all time. And Franco Berasi, also known as Piscini, is not, I probably said that wrong, but is acknowledged by many as the greatest center back in the history of the game. He perfectly played like as a sweeper and being the most important role for AC Milan's famous defensive line, which kept a record without conceding a goal in more than 900 consecutive minutes. That's absolutely ridiculous. He was a huge part of that. He won 3 Champions Leagues, 6 Serie A titles, won 17 total trophies in his career, including those 6 Serie A titles and 3 Champions Leagues, 4 Supercoppa Italiana, 2 European Super Cups, 2 Intercontinental Cups, and his number 6 shirt was eventually retired by Milan. So, he was huge. He wasn't really that tall. He still always managed, he had like ridiculous hops and won almost all his aerials. He was an amazing leader and had great vision and would always go up the pitch and just was an excellent player on and off the floor and just always seemed to do really well no matter what he was asked to do. Was just great throughout his career. Next, we got Bobby Moore at number 2. A lot of people kind of like switch this back and forth, whether, Baresi is number 2, Bobby Moore number 3. But I think Bobby Moore is the second best defender of all time. I mean, had 108 caps for England, which was a record until David Beckham broke that record in 2009. Played over 600 games for West Ham in 16th season and is considered their greatest player ever. He won the World Cup in 1966, my apologies, and after being named captain in 1964. Just huge honors. He won the FA Cup once, the Winners' Cup once, and just was an unbelievable player. Won the Silver Ball in 1966. And this guy was just an iconic player in English football. And it's just been, his greatness was just always appeared on the match. I mean, of course, he played way back in the day, and there's not a lot of of footage to really go off from him. But man, he was super good. It just always felt like whenever an attacker seemed to have the edge on him, he had the timing to take out those attackers, and even if he seemed like he was behind on the defense, he found a way to get on top. And that you do not see that a lot in today's game. You don't see players that are able to to take those disadvantages and turn them into an advantage. Bobby Moore did that day in and day out, and he was also voted in the top 10 in the Ballon d'Or in both 1971 and 1972, and was honestly the best English defender of all time. So, last but certainly not least, this is no doubt, no-brainer. Literally everybody would say that this guy is the best defender of all time. And I'm sure you guys know who I'm going to be saying. Franz Beckenbauer of Germany. Technically of West Germany. Now, this guy was an absolute monster. No doubt in anybody's mind, the best defender of all time. And considered, honestly, one of the greatest footballers ever in history. I know it's hard to really put a defender up there, and you see a lot of people saying Messi, Ronaldo, but this guy is no doubt one of the best and should be up there on that list. He won 19 honors for club and country, including a World Cup in 1990, 2 Ballon d'Ors. Everyone else on this list, which I'm sure you guys have, if you guys have been keeping up, everyone else on this list combines for just 1 Ballon d'Or. Franz Beckenbauer won 2. He was a 4-time German Footballer of the Year. He won the Golden Foot in 2010, FIFA Presidential Award, and UEFA President's Award. I mean, this guy did it all throughout his career and was just consistently considered one of the best defenders to ever do it. And absolutely no doubt. This guy was just a model defender and something that any player in history would want to, be just like. And on top of that, he actually holds the record for the most Bundesliga Team of the Season awards with 12. He was obviously, just an absolutely unbelievable player. To have all these accomplishments, it makes absolutely, total sense that he would be considered one of the best defenders of all time. And that's why he deserves to be number 1 on this list. So that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know with these, top 10 of all-time players, I don't know much about these guys. I mean, I do research and I see, I can't see stats, but I try to find out as much about these guys as I possibly can. And I know that they're, legends of the game. So as always, thank you for listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I would really appreciate it. Thank you and have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.